So, compassion and creativity would be the overflow of having received deeply compassion from God, the divine, the universe. We have let that compassion breathe in us. The overflow is gathered colours and beauty, silently speaking in the rawness of emotions, where sometimes we're caught off guard. Unsure of what has just happened, it would seem that compassion, in all its hidden creative depths, reaches for and touches our souls.
Welcome to the Embracing Mystery podcast. Join us as we explore together ways that we can embrace creative and spiritual mystery in our lives and simultaneously find ourselves embraced in the mystery of compassionate, creative interconnection, held by what may be called the divine or source or consciousness or even mystery itself. In the process, we seek to become more fully ourselves, find our home and places of belonging, and grow as creative, spiritual, and relational beings.
Well, welcome to episode 13 of the Embracing Mystery podcast. Today we have with us as a guest Lorna Elliott. She's a wonderful regular participant in our Table Collective community, and she describes herself as an aspiring artist and writer, a bit of an adventurer, and happy to be a constant work of progress. And for us, it's a great joy to have Lorna here today with us. And we invited her just to talk about this journey of joyful self-compassion. She's someone who exudes a sense of being okay with being herself in a really beautiful way. And so we wanted to dive deeper into what does that self-compassion look like? What is that journey? Obviously, it looks different for everyone, but she is going to be a wonderful conversation partner to begin exploring that. And we also, sadly, today is our last day with Naz here. So Naz, thank you so much. We'll let you share a little bit more at the end, but we just want to acknowledge this has been an amazing time this last year doing this with you. So many wonderful conversations on and off camera. So this is our last time with her, and we're really grateful. And so the first thing we want to do today to get started, I have a brief practice to help us get connected with our own sense of compassion and then self-compassion. So if you will pause here with me, get seated however you want, eyes open or closed, whatever makes you feel comfortable. And take a few deep breaths. And then I just want to invite you to begin by cultivating love and compassion in your heart, maybe for someone for whom it's really easy for you to love. And get in touch with what that feels like in your body to hold compassion and love for them. In the ways that you enjoy who they are, just for who they are. We'll sit with that for a few moments. And then I want to invite you to aim that compassion now at yourself and notice what it feels like to turn from celebrating who someone else is and having compassion for them to now notice what that feels like to try to do that for yourself. It might be a smooth transition, or you might have some things that start to come up for you, or that feels a little bit of tension, or in your body, maybe there's some resistance to that. But just however you experience that, I invite you to take a moment to do that and see how you experience it. Yeah, and just notice what happened for you during this time, and maybe that's something you need to come back to. We all probably do. But I just wanted to ground our conversation today in some real awareness of our own enjoyment of ourselves, or ways that we're in the middle of a journey on that, most likely. Yeah. So it's something you can come back to. But to begin today, I would like to invite Lorna just to talk a little bit about your journey of self-compassion. What does that look like to begin to love who you are? And you can go about that however you like, and then we'll be able to respond after that.
Well, thank you, and thank you for the opportunity of being here. It's been interesting. In preparation for this conversation, I was quite excited to notice how hugely transforming compassion is. And I think when I look back to a time when I asked a question, what is compassion? I often wonder, do we actually know what that word means? And so I kind of feel as if I want to start there as, what is compassion? What do we think compassion is? And where I went with that was maybe it's a great question to ask yourself. And I'm wondering, is it an awareness of suffering? Suffering in others, suffering in yourself? And looking at that word then just leads me into my own story, where I came to a place of compassion through my own suffering. Although at the time I wouldn't have known that's what it was, if that makes sense. So my own story was, am I okay just to go back and go, just start with that? Yeah. Of suffering and coming to a place of having enough. Enough is enough. And feeling that I was being controlled by unknown and unseen forces. And that just made me believe that there was no way out. And when we've never seen an alternative, we continue living in a cycle of sameness, because we don't know any different. And so we continue to recycle all the time a way of being. What kind of captured me for a moment was my 6-year-old son saying to me, but you don't know everything because you don't know who God is. And in that moment, I made a promise to him to find out who this God was. So that set me on a quest, because I didn't really want to do that, I have to say. In the midst of doing that was, though, it felt like it just caused more suffering, actually. It set me on an alternative path, because to do the same old, you get the same old result. So I had to do something completely different. And to do something completely different, the only thing I hadn't tried was God, really, was church. And that just felt like just more suffering. And I would fight with myself. And there's something about that whole, we fight with ourselves in order to be what we want to be. And the fight is against what we think that we are. I don't know if that's making sense, but coming back to what compassion is, the more I followed an unknown path, which was church, the more I experienced strange happenings and sometimes uncomfortable moments, and that would reach past my brain, it would reach past what I thought, and cause me to cry, and that would cause me to just to wonder what was going on. I would experience people, what did that look like? It would be people getting excited to see me. Well, that was weird, strange. Just completely different reactions that made me pay attention and think, what's going on here? I am looking back at the time, I couldn't have said this, but looking back, I could see, I was on a completely different path. And therefore, there was always going to be a different outcome. There was always going to be a different something else. So it was, when I say I'm an adventurer, I would say that's probably where the adventure comes from. And it also, I think, spending time with others that were different towards me, made me experience something of their compassion for me. And I think that's the softening. That was what I experienced. That softening, which I received. And so here's me receiving compassion. It's not just enough to know what the word is, or even, I didn't even know what the word would have meant. If you'd asked me, I would have been, yeah, it's just looking after others, really. You know, I wouldn't have put maybe the word suffering to it. So at a point where I had discovered, oh, there is another way, there is something else, and I don't know what it is, but I want more of it, whatever it is. I was given an opportunity to train in counselling, which I felt like that would give me a good base to work out what I was, which sounds strange for me to say. I didn't know what I was. But it was one of those questions where I don't know how to be. I don't know how to be around these people. I don't know how to be a wife or a mother. I don't know how to be a woman or female even. How do I be in these circumstances? What am I? So the training in counselling gave me some kind of appreciation for how our lives, what happens to us affects how we think, and that whole psychology of, and opportunities to actually get counselling for myself. That led into that helped me have a toolkit. I believe that gave me a voice. It helped to give me a voice and helped me to be able to communicate and be able to ask questions, because the more I kind of was with other people that spoke into my life, the more I wanted to know. I was so hungry. So then in the next opportunity I was given was to train in play therapy, which was for children, and filial therapy for the adults as well. So that took me back to my own childhood. And there I saw the little me. And it was like, oh, you know, there's little me. And I understand why I felt the way that I did. All of a sudden I had eyes that saw past where I was at that point in time, and I was looking into a bigger picture of my life. This all took over a space of 10 years. This was like a long journey. And then the last one was trauma, where I did sensory motor psychotherapy, which was an unexpected open door for me. I didn't know that I would be allowed to do it, because although I've done that training, it didn't make me professional in any way. Anyway, I did get on the course, and it was an American lady called Janina Fisher, who I believe I've looked up to see if she's still around, and she's still practicing. And she came over to Lincoln down in England. Over the space of a year, I did 4 blocks of this trauma training. So this felt like horrendous. So, and there was no written work. It was learning. They would trigger you gently and then talk you through it and make it sound like it was this horrific thing. But it was gentle triggers, and then they would talk about what's happening in your brain, what's happening in your body, so that you could actually differentiate from, because you would dissociate that whole thing off. You just left the room, no idea what's going on. So I did that regularly. But they were very compassionate towards me. They looked after me. They took care of me, along with training me. And at the end of that, I just felt such a privilege to have. So part of what I do is I pour myself, all of me, into everything that I do. I'm an all or nothing person. I have an addictive nature. My past was alcohol and all sorts of other addictions. So I have that all or nothing, yeah, let's go do this attitude towards things. So the more you pour into things, the more you get out of it. That's the way that I looked at it. So all of me went into this training, this trauma. And I guess the result of that was, wow, the transformation in just having a little bit of education about what happens in a moment of a trigger going off in your brain, when you're just explaining the whole brain symptoms. And then, of course, it makes absolute perfect sense. You don't know what you're doing because the cognitive part of your brain has switched off. So all these times when I just felt so stupid because I kept doing the same old, actually now began to make sense to me. And there's another place where I could receive compassion for me. I made sense. It was like, oh, wow, look at that. That was so exciting for me. And also, oh my gosh, look at everybody that's in these services. Look at everybody, you know, that are doing work that is vicarious trauma. They're picking it up all the time. And I was, wow, you know, we are all living in a world where there is a constant, you know, rupture of peace and of, depending on your lives and your circumstances, depends on how well you manage. So there's me beginning to, I look back and I begin to see, wow, I'm receiving compassion. I'm understanding what that compassion is, and I'm seeing it, that coming from me to others in a sense that is like, you know, there's nobody any different. You know, we're all actually doing the very best that we can with the lives that we have until we know something different, because often we don't know there's an alternative. And so I think that's part of where compassion sits and has come from for me. And I'll stop there maybe, and if you want to ask anything or take more from me there at that point, I don't know. Yeah. I'll give a gap. I'll breathe now.
Yes, you can. Yes, please take a breath. Thank you so much for getting us started by sharing a little glimpse of your story. Just want to even just pause with that for a moment, just to hold you in a space of love and compassion and gratitude for that, and then we'll begin to respond whatever was coming up for us as we were hearing you share this. So let's just take a moment. Yeah, thank you. Well, Kevin, Naz, me. Yeah, what's coming up in you? What are you most interested in exploring further here?
Naz, do you have anything that you want to jump in with? I want to give you first crack there.
Kind of still thinking.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think for me, Lorna, as you even the initial question, you know, so what is compassion and suffering with, including feeling the suffering of ourselves, and it seemed like one of the pivots in that was your own connection with, I'll just say, little Lorna, and the ability to do that, and I've kind of been living there for a while myself in my own life, and Stephen, your opening practice with us to, you know, who was it, you know, who could we most relate to, and it was, you know, it was my grandkids, and I realized that I had never like turned that around on me at that age for some reason. I've done a lot of inner child work, but I had never turned around and just said, allowed the feelings I have towards my own grandkids in all their imperfections and you know, disobedience and rambunctiousness and all that. I have compassion for them, but I haven't aimed that at myself that way. So, Lorna, your sharing kind of further unlocked that for me personally. So I just wanted to kind of share what was happening in me as we paused, Stephen, and then as you shared, Lorna. But that the play therapy and all of that kind of stuff, I thought it was just nothing. It wasn't new, but it was new today. So thank you.
Okay. Well, and I think what you said, Kevin, highlights like how we like there's a fundamental, just like, it's easy when you look at your grandchildren of like, no, you just love who they are. Like you enjoy the core, however you want to define or talk about the core of what a person is.
Even when they're being little turds, you know?
But you like, still just like fundamentally delight in who they are at some deeper level. but it feels like, and maybe there's exceptions to this, but it feels like somehow we all end up in a boat together where we don't automatically feel that way about ourselves.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
know
I can
why.
relate to
But
that.
Why?
yeah.
I feel like I'm in the beginning stages of compassion for myself. I feel like I'm in my mid 30s, and I feel like I think starting last year, my journey with like being compassionate with myself has started. Before that, it was so much harder, and I don't know why. I feel like with age, it's getting easier. Um, Maybe with the wisdom that's come with aging and more life experiences, but I also started inner child work. And at first in therapy, and I kind of rolled my eyes. I'm like, okay, we'll see how this goes. I don't think it's going to work. But the effect was so profound. Like,
Mm,
I wasn't ready. Well, we found out in therapy, it was, I got way more emotional than I thought it was going to be. So
mm,
I
mm,
was kind of laughing at myself about rolling my eyes. I'm like, okay, no, my therapist knew what she was doing. But just kind of meeting my little self as an
mm.
adult, it was a very powerful experience for me. And just looking at her and realizing all the stuff that she has gone through. And also, just as an adult, sometimes we, I don't know, box ourselves in with expectations of what like someone in this like decade is supposed to look like. But right
Mhm.
now, I feel like I'm reconnecting back with maybe the childhood or the child that I couldn't quite be. I don't know.
Mm.
I feel like
Mhm.
I'm connecting with those traumatized past selves in a
Yeah.
different way,
Yeah.
connecting to the trauma piece,
Yeah.
um, instead of staying in the suffering, kind of understanding that's what happened. Um, and it's part of me, but not me type of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, Lorna, I think you used like the image of, when we dissociate, we leave the room, but trying to stay in the room. And that's what I kind of hear you saying, Naz, is like learning how to stay in the room. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do with the traumatic things that happened as a kid, and just not to just leave the room
Mm-hmm.
and then try to feel better, like, but
Mm-hmm.
actually like stay in the room and look at it all.
Or try and ignore it, because that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
Yeah.
I got to do more school. I got to get like my,
Yeah.
because I thought what was gonna heal me, and I
Yeah.
Yeah.
realized like, okay, I did all those accomplishments. Why am I not feeling better about myself?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Naz. That's great.
And it kind of like for me connects to, I was thinking before this episode about like what is authentic, learning to become ourselves. And I think in many ways, I don't know if this is exactly what you're saying, Naz, but there's almost like allowing parts of ourselves that didn't get to fully live because they got
Yeah.
hurt in a way. One, having compassion and being with them, and allowing that healing to happen. But there's a
Mm.
deeper sense of those parts of yourself get to live for real now, like that were maybe stunted or held back or in hiding or whatever way of not feeling just wonderful in who you are, get to live and breathe and be freer in some sense. um but I was just thinking about the difference between that versus like there might be people who say they love themselves, but it's actually a massive ego construction, building like this internal empire of how awesome they are that is maybe has some
Mm.
authentic pieces to it. Like, who am I to say? I don't know, but like,
Maybe they're running like I did.
right, right. It could be
Yeah.
simultaneously running from masking things, building an outer image,
Yeah.
or it's comparative of like I have worth because I'm better, or I have worth. Like, it's not just an authentic,
Yeah.
intrinsic. I am beloved. I am delighted, and so is everyone else, kind of
Right.
thing.
That inclusive. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, these are all really, it's all really, yeah. I mean, I do think, Naz, what you're saying is something comes with a wisdom comes with maturing and growing and becoming older. I would absolutely agree with that. I do think that there's a time when things begin to settle and you do reflect so much more. And I would say, for me, it was in my 30s. That was when I hit that was when I hit the space when it was like, oh, okay, I can't do this anymore. I think there's something about the 30s. Is that middle or what? I don't know. You've come through your childhood, your teenage years, your school years, and you've found a job, and now what? Yeah. And then the big questions maybe start. It's one of the hardest things for me to know was in going to church was the fact that there was a lot of stuff happened to me as a child, and I don't actually have huge memories, but was knowing that God knew, He knew, and I was like, but I don't have any memories, and having to. So I think what I'm meaning in this part, what I want to say about this part, is the integration, and staying in the room. So when you don't stay in the room, you dissociate. It's to do with body, soul, and spirit. And sometimes as a child, we misinterpret and misunderstand a situation, somebody's voice. An example of that would be, for me as a little child, I would have been 6. I started self-harming at that age, and I would drag my knuckles along the wall. And I can remember vividly being taken into the headmaster's room, and there just seemed to be all these adults, and I felt as if they were all really, really angry with me. And when I went back there, I took God with me. You're coming with me. I'm not going in there myself. What I began to see was their anger was not at me. They were clearly aware that there was other stuff going on, but they weren't able to keep that from me. I sensed, I knew that they were angry, but I just assumed that it was at me. They weren't angry at me at all. They were probably afraid for me. But that's really interesting, even just at that wee snippet, just to look at that and how we interpret, and how we did interpret as a child, with even as a small child before we had words. How do you walk that one through when you don't know the word for what you're experiencing? And so all of that is held as a body, a physiological experience inside your bodies. You might not have any memories.
Right.
And there's something so beautiful about that, because it means then you don't have to go back to find a memory, but you can work with your body and understanding that what's happening when you dissociate is this part of your brain is just closed down, and you're now working on something that is fight and flight, and then you'd be curious about that. Oh, wonder why that is. I think you did a practice, Kevin, which was why is that? But why is that?
The circles of why.
The circles of why.
Why?
Yeah. And
which
that's
interestingly is an annoying child's question as well. But since we're talking about inner children, I never saw that connection. But sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, Lorna. Keep going.
Yeah. But why? And what does that mean? And so these questions of being curious rather than afraid of, there's it's for me it has been a journey. I haven't learned this. This has taken me years and years to work out. But I still get really excited by the fact that, wow, this is another way of living your life, knowing and understanding how incredibly we are made in order to survive specific things, so that at a time in our lives when probably there's people around us that can support us, and we're able to understand better, or we're hungry to know answers, and we can go back there and integrate all these pieces that don't make sense, but still cause us to live in a way that is fearful or trapped in some way. I felt so trapped. I didn't understand why I kept doing the same stuff over and over, and it's exhausting. What is that all about? And then to understand that actually, oh, it's a trigger, and this is what a trigger is. Oh, wow. That's so cool. I mean, that makes light of it, but it actually was like, oh, there's a door here and I can walk through it. I can choose to walk through this door. It doesn't change that stuff didn't have, it doesn't change any of that, but it does change the fact that I'm not now held captive by stuff. You know, I can walk free of that. And that's a place where I think there's a deep joy that is not a happy joy. It's not. It's a rich joy that's been brought about by blood, sweat and tears, really. Which you're already experiencing. Oh, didn't expect that. Yeah, it's powerful. Yeah. And it's all part of being released, I think, into becoming the true person that you are, that you've always been. But that I think we walk into that. I think we walk into our journeys in life are about, this is just my own kind of thing, I think it's about journeying into the true person of who we are. You know, walking through the stuff. Sorry, I have a visual imagination that I just keep going. I think of the hobbits when they're on that journey up the mountain and they're, you know, but that's kind of like our lives. I just think, you know, there's something about that that's, it's not easy. It's hard, you know.
Yeah.
What else? There was another course I did just lately, which kind of gave me what felt like, whether it's the last piece in my jigsaw, I have no idea. You think you've got to the last piece and then there's another one. But just about 3 years ago, I did I was watching this guy on YouTube. His name's Jamie Winship. And I was like, I know his story. I don't know who he is. I know his story. I need to find out more. So he has a whole, him and his wife run this whole thing on identity. And there was two things that I took out of that training. One was we are all so uniquely made. So we are all unique, completely different from everyone else. And in that, we are known in that uniqueness. So we're all gifted and talented, but more gifted in particular ways. So that, when we kind of are able to live and breathe in that true identity, there should be much more peace. There should be less conflict because we don't need to have what they have because we have what we have. And we, you know, not making that very clear. And the other part was, what lens do I look through? And I realised that, there's not enough was my lens. Everything, there was scarcity. So there was never enough of anything, which led me to live. I needed to be certain about everything, making sure I did the right thing. I can't fail. I have to get it right. So there's perfection. That tampered with all my creativity and anything of that was in me because I had to get it right. I could see what I wanted to do in my mind, but I couldn't do it. So I'm not doing it. I would self-protect and just live in a place of fear. And this was, oh my gosh. So if God is God and he is the God of all creation, then there is enough. That just makes sense to me because he knows and he has given us, he's made us connected. So that if there's enough, then I can live with mystery instead of certainty. It's not about failing, but I can live the other way. Oh, that doesn't work, so let's try this. So it's not about failing, it's about, oh, maybe that's not a good way of doing it, but there has to be another way of doing it. And that then makes it outside of me hiding and being fearful. So it was a lens of there is enough, a lens of I guess it's that kingdom lens, to use that word kingdom, which I never understood what that was, but I've begun to understand what that actually means. It's something outside of the dog-eat-dog kind of mentality that is around us in business or in just in everything. You can find it. Everybody wants their own piece and don't care about anyone else. That's a generalization, I understand. But But if I look through a lens of, well, look, there's enough, I can relax, chill, it's okay. That has brought about just a change in being less fearful when things don't look like I think they should look like, or things are not happening the way that I think they should happen. So, and not being attached to what I think, what I think things should be. Between that and also this ancient wells that I'm doing with yourselves, it's opening me up, I think, opening me up to a real sense of exploring what creativity actually really means. I think we're made to be creative. I think that's who we are. We are creative people, but we get stuck in the fear of the certainty that we need to live in. And then we're fooled by our bodies that tell us, but remember when this happened, and it gets in the way. I don't know if that makes any sense to you, does it? Does that sound,
I think if I can try to repeat back what I'm gathering out of the different things you're saying, there's a connection between our own being enough and seeing a world where we trust that compassion, and however we understand the ultimate or reality, whatever spiritual tradition we're doing that in, a deeper trust that there is a wider compassion than just ourselves, and that there's enough out there and there's enough in who we are. And then you combine those together with creativity in a way that it's actually trusting those two things are enough, then is setting you free from your own self-protection and self-promotion kind of ego making, or ego defending, and at the same time having a wider freedom to run and play and create.
So you are enough. We are enough in our own individual beings of who we are. We are enough.
Naz, were you leaning in there a minute ago? I was just...
No, my cat was just...
Okay, all right. Yeah, I didn't want to miss something. I think too that the to kind of come back, Stephen, you asked early on, kind of one of the things you're curious about with all this is, why is it so hard for us to be compassionate with ourselves? Why is that so hard? And I think we're touching on some things, but kind of implicitly. And I think this kind of idea of scarcity and also that things have to be a certain way rather than the kind of creative, so failure is failure instead of learning, right? Instead of seeing a failure as that's just another step of the process, we tend to be like, look at that, I screwed up again. And then that blocks compassion, et cetera.
It ends up meaning something about who we are.
Yeah, and I think the scarcity idea rather than abundance, at least in my life, as I think back, one of the realizations I had today, just as we were talking, was I realized because of divorce in my family, I got separated from a whole side of my family, including my grandmother on my father's side, and she loved me, like she really loved me, and it broke her heart, the divorce, because I saw very little of her, and but that's all kind of come out much more recently. And for some reason today, I was like able to see myself through her eyes and then realize, and I just never received it because I wanted it to come from, my dad and my mom, and they weren't giving that to me the way I was looking for. So I just kind of and it's that scarcity thing instead of actually, there's lots of compassion and love in my life. So why? So why do I not feel it for myself? Well, I cut myself off from some sources. Why did I cut myself off from some sources? Because I wanted to see it in certain ways. Why, all these things I think get wrapped up in why we have a hard time with, or at least why I do. And so, it's just like, well, dang, that didn't have to be that way.
And you suffer in that place.
Right.
There's big suffer, but there's a suffering of just a frustration or a sadness that affects you, continues to affect you. It's just not fair. That whole sentence of, it's not fair.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That used to be something I screamed at my mother a lot, by the way. So I have
Okay.
my rights. That's not fair. So anyway, that's
Yeah, my
something
parents
for
be
a
like, "Yeah, but
therapist.
the world's not fair."
Yeah,
So,
I know.
or better yet, the world doesn't revolve around you, Stephen. Like,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I think the other reason why on the topic of why self-compassion is so hard is I think we're also afraid of coming across as egotistical, right? I think there's that fear of trying to balance. So then we overcompensate because we don't want
Mhm.
to come across as that, I guess, person who's
Right.
self-centered.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And we're not quite taught the difference between the two, I think, when we're kids.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
a really good point. That's a really, really good point.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then that can stifle the whole creative thing. And do we offer our creativity to others, or do we just sit on it? Because we want to and we want to share it, but then we're like, yeah, but that's just you thinking who do you think you are, kind of thing, and that kind of stuff. So it's
Yeah,
not.
that critical voice, that whose is the
Mhm,
critical voice
mhm.
that tells you that you're not enough, that you're
Yeah.
rubbish, that you can't do this. That was my favorite. What do you mean I can't do this? Tell me I can't do this. I was such a rebel. I was forever in trouble. I don't think that stopped actually.
But but that rebellious part was actually a healthy part of yourself, right?
I think it was,
Yeah,
and I'm happy that it was there because I think
yeah,
that's part of that has been. I kicked back at because everybody in my family, not everybody, but the people in my family that where there was a lot of hurt, where it was all authoritarian. It was authority.
mm,
Um,
mm,
yeah. So, and kicking back at authority is just difficult. Like, yeah, just gets you in trouble, and you can't not get in trouble when you do that. But
yeah,
um, with the head on that I have now, I can actually see that without that peace in me, I don't know, would I still be where I was? Would I have made it this far? I don't know. But I think we
Did it
all
give you an
are
inner
equipped.
strength to rebel and keep going?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we're all equipped in ways. I would say, and it's maybe just me, but I would say to find that path that leads us to that alternative one, and I do think it takes guts to take it because we don't know the path, we don't know the way, and human beings want to know. We just want to know what's going to happen next.
sure.
And so we need to, that again, we're coming back to that there's not enough, and we
Yeah,
need to get it right. But if we could live in the mystery of, I wonder what will happen, and Kevin, you use these words, I wonder what will happen if we do it this way, I wonder what will happen if you do that. Well, what does happen, you know?
mm, yeah.
Okay, that didn't work, but let's try it another way. Oh, learn something from that. If it's in life, if it's about business,
I can
if
talk a
it's
better game than I actually do. So yeah,
yeah. If it's big life sort of decisions, then
mm,
that's also that
yeah,
it's hard. It's not easy. It's fearful. But if what do you believe though? Do you believe you're alone and abandoned in this world, or do you believe that there is a God who
but there's
loves you?
more. Hmm.
Yeah, there's more.
Hmm.
There's so much more that's out there that is actually kind and good to you and knows you. That can be a game changer. I mean, forever I believed I was alone and abandoned, and so that's how
Hmm.
I lived. I had to fend for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I frame a question really quick that I think, because it's the Embracing Mystery podcast, and it sits within the Table Collective sort of ecosystem of different things that we do, all of which flow out of this sense of, really wanting to live and cultivate lives that are interconnected and that come from a place of existing interconnection, and that are lives that are full of compassion and connecting with compassion, and lives that are creative. And because we see all these things just and lives in relationship with each other. We see all these things connected, and I wonder, Lorna, you're an artist. You do poetry and visual art, and we've had the privilege of receiving a good bit of that over these past weeks and months. But that the experience of beginning to be able to be compassionate with yourself and your creative expressions and outputs. Could you describe, like, when did you first start seeing the creative side of yourself? What was going on in,
the first time I saw anything creative in,
I guess.
Yeah, the first time I saw anything creative in me, I would have been about 18.
Okay.
And I started writing poetry then, and it was all desperate, like
well, I mean,
dark and
right?
angst,
Yeah.
and the
Teenage
world was
poetry,
against me.
Yeah.
And I kept some of that. I've not got it now, but I did keep it for a wee while, because I found it interesting what I wrote. Even back then, I found it interesting what came out. And then the next would have been when I came to faith. And then for those 10 years that I talked about, I wrote, basically my journey I wrote in song. So
Okay.
now I have my 3-chord wonder.
This is a side of you we have not heard about before.
Yeah. So my whole family were football mad. My husband, he would train kids. He was a football coach, and I'm like, I don't do football. No. So I decided I would get myself a guitar and learn guitar. So the guitar that I bought, not knowing what I was buying, happened to be a classical guitar. So I took lessons in classical guitar, and
the real
that
stuff.
Was just, it was amazing. And that was just prior to me coming to faith. And then I went back this day after this, an experience that I'd had of love, of God, and I had written a song to one of these classical pieces of music, and I took it back to him, and I was, "Oh, you need to listen to this," and I sang it and I played it, and he was like, "Yeah, you don't put words to classical music, guitar music," and I was like,
"Oh my gosh,
yeah, you do. I've just done it."
You absolutely can do it.
It can be done. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, that was my classical career finished. Because I ran out of time. The kids were at an age where time was, I didn't have time to practice. But then I got a different guitar. I sold my guitar to go on a conference, and I got another guitar and taught myself just 3 chords kind of a thing, and continued, because I was so shocked that I had words to this classical piece of music. I was like, wow, gosh, can I do this? That continued for about 10 years. And then when the trauma training finished, that was where there was a big stop. It was almost like, right, that's enough. And then for the next, I don't know, 9 years it would have been, it felt like I was reestablishing what life looks like now when I look back at it. And there was no music, there was no art, there was nothing creative in those years, in the sense that I could say I was creative, other than putting into practice all that I had learned and trying to live that life. 2019, I remember just saying out loud, I need to waken up. I've gone to sleep, I need to waken up. And I think that kind of kicked off another space in my life where I was searching for more. And that's when the creativity came back in again. So it was just it's been interesting looking back.
Yeah. You shared with us, as we were preparing for this conversation, a quote that was your own quote, I believe, around how you saw creativity and compassion kind of flowing out of your own self-compassion, or this experience of being okay, or more than okay with just being yourself. I was curious if you have that available to share. Okay.
So compassion and creativity would be the overflow of having received deeply compassion from God, the divine, the universe. We have let that compassion breathe in us. The overflow is gathered colours and beauty, silently speaking in the rawness of emotions, where sometimes we are caught off guard. Unsure of what has just happened, it would seem that compassion, in all its hidden creative depths, reaches for and touches our souls.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful.
Yeah. I think for me that captures a lot of the connection or of that experience of, and maybe some of the ineffable ways that like I liked how you talked about it, adding color and these things to it to express it. But just this deep connection between the freedom of being creative that's deeply connected to our journeys of self-compassion and receiving that for ourselves. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Good. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, so that is for me such a wonderful way to wrap up today. But before we go, I just want to say thank you, Naz, also for this wonderful year of conversations and things that we've been able to explore together on and off the podcast. Just deeply appreciative.
Thank you both for inviting me to be a part of the project. Honestly, I think the conversations and the project itself kind of motivated me to come out of the hiatus and reconnect really back to my creative self and try a lot of cool things and projects with the prompts and just our conversations. So thank you both.
Well, thank you. We've benefited from your creative work during this time. I personally have been very profoundly affected by your poetry, your visual art, the film that you've done, film work that you've done. Really, really appreciate that. And just so that our listeners know and understand, I mean, Naz has been part of this from conceptualizing and ideation of the whole idea of what the podcast would be about, what we would call it, how we would describe it, what, the topics we would cover, everything. She's been very, very involved all through that process. Over Thai food and other times together as we've kind of worked through all of this. And then the other thing that I wish we could have had like cameras rolling for a lot of the offline conversations that we've had around the table before filming and after and that sort of thing. So Naz, thank you just so much. Just thanks for being you. And we're really, really grateful. So
I got more comfortable speaking behind a microphone as well. So
good. Yeah. Well, we've benefited from that.
Yeah. Do you want to say anything, Naz, about what next season of life looks like for you as you're transitioning off?
Well, it obviously involves a cat.
Sorry, my cat. I'm kind of going into a little period of retreat. Just feeling a little burnt out. I think before we started recording, I mentioned just kind of feeling out of flow. I would like to maybe focus on my health a little bit, and I'd like to focus on my writing. But for me, in order to kind of improve in my writing, I need to read. So I need to make some more time for reading.
It's really wonderful.
Thank you, Naz.
I hope it's a joyful journey of learning, growing in those things, and hopefully of continued self-compassion and all of that.
And keeping a creative notebook in the meantime, just jotting down ideas, even if I can't actively work on them. I will still have a notebook for all these ideas that come through my.
Yeah, please do, and I hope you'll share things with us as they come to fruition. And then, Lorna, I don't know if if people have been hearing about you writing poetry and painting and other things. I don't know if your work is available for people who are listening to this to find, and if so, where? Now, I know one place they can find some of your work for all of you who are listening is if you connect with Table Collective. We have a whole online community space where people like Lorna are sharing their creative work, and you can access it there, as well as the work of other people. So hint, hint, all of you listening, to go over to tablecollective.art and sign up for our newsletter and become part of the community so that you'll know more about these things. But outside of that, Lorna, are there places that people can find your work?
Hey, That's a work in progress. Yes, still working on it.
Okay.
I don't have
All right.
any kind of at the moment.
Okay. All right. Well, all the more reason that people should get over to Table Collective and become part of that
Yeah.
community so they can find what you're doing. Yeah. Stephen, back to you, sir.
Yeah, well, thank you everyone for today's episode, and please like, subscribe, join the conversation. Look forward to hearing from you all. And thank you all here. It's been a real joy.
Thank you, Stephen.
Yep.
Thank you.